Victoria Ashford had 48 hours before her life ended, not because she'd done anything wrong, but because someone had decided to destroy her. In the world of Manhattan finance, when powerful people wanted you dead, running wasn't an option. Fighting was the only way out. The morning sun carved sharp lines across Central Park, 42 floors below Tory's corner office. Inside, the temperature felt 10 degrees colder than the November air outside. Michael Hayes, the internal auditor, placed the report on her glass desk with trembling hands. $47 million, gone. Vanished across 18 months through transactions that all bore her digital signature. Tori kept her back to him, watching a jogger circle the reservoir far below. Her reflection in the window showed nothing, no fear, no surprise, just the ice-cold mask she'd worn for 15 years. I didn't authorize those transfers. I know, Ms. Ashford. Michael's voice cracked on the last syllable. But the board won't believe that. They've called an emergency meeting Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock. How long? 48 hours. Tori closed her eyes. 15 years building Ashford Analytics from a startup in a cramped apartment to a software company worth $500 million. 15 years proving that a woman from Detroit's poorest neighborhoods could dominate an industry designed to crush people like her. All of it about to collapse because someone had forged her name. The board would force her resignation. The authorities would file criminal charges. The media would feast on the scandal. Woman CEO embezzles millions. Her face would be plastered across every financial news channel, another cautionary tale about female ambition and corporate greed. And Sloan, her 16-year-old daughter, currently at boarding school in Massachusetts, would see her mother's mugshot on television, would remember her as a fraud, a criminal, a failure. Leave me, Michael fled. The door clicked shut with a sound like a vault ceiling. Tori turned from the window and sank into her chair. The Armani suit that usually felt like armor now seemed flimsy as tissue paper. She pulled up her contacts list, 847 names accumulated over years of networking, deal-making, strategic alliances. But trust was a currency she'd never invested in. Every person in that list wanted something from her. Nobody would help her now. Her finger hovered over one name, Marcus Reed. They'd met 2 years ago at a forensic accounting conference in Boston. She'd sat in the back of his presentation watching him dissect a fraud case with surgical precision. When someone asked if he'd ever been offered money to look the other way, he'd locked eyes with the questioner and delivered his answer like a blade. Numbers don't lie, and neither do I. My conscience isn't for sale at any price. The memory made her breath catch. She needed someone who couldn't be bought, someone who saw truth as religion. Before she could second-guess herself, she pressed call. 4 rings, then a voice deep and cautious. Reed. Mr. Reed, this is Victoria Ashford. We met at I remember. What do you need? No pleasantries, no warm-up, just straight to business. Tori found herself grateful for the bluntness. I need a forensic accountant, immediately. I don't take last-minute cases. I have 48 hours before my life is over. Please. Silence stretched between them. In the background, Tori heard something unexpected, a child singing high and sweet. The contrast jolted her. This man hunted criminals by day and had a daughter who sang by night. I have my daughter tonight. You'll need to come to my house. 7 p.m., Brooklyn. I'll text the address. Thank you. The line went dead. Tori stared at her phone. In her world, people ended conversations with elaborate courtesies, extended goodbyes, promises to follow up. Marcus Reed just stopped talking when he was done. The efficiency was oddly comforting. Her calendar glared at her from the second monitor. Board meeting Wednesday at 10. 48 hours to find the person who'd framed her, gather evidence, and save everything she'd built. The deadline felt like a noose tightening with each passing second. Who would do this? Who hated her enough to orchestrate such elaborate destruction? The question burned through her mind as Manhattan's skyline faded into afternoon shadows. Snow began falling as Tori guided her Mercedes S-Class through Brooklyn's tree-lined streets. The contrast hit her immediately. Manhattan was glass and steel, vertical ambition piercing clouds. Brooklyn was brownstones and sidewalks, horizontal community spreading across neighborhoods. The GPS led her to a modest 3-story building with stone steps and ivy climbing the brick facade. Warm light glowed behind curtained windows. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. The $4,000 Armani suit, the Louboutin heels, the diamond studs armor for a battlefield she'd been fighting on for so long, she'd forgotten what peace looked like. Now she was walking into a stranger's home begging for help. The vulnerability felt like standing naked in a spotlight. The door opened before her knuckles touched wood. Marcus Reed filled the frame taller than she'd remembered. His flannel shirt, faded jeans, and worn boots could have been bought at any department store. No designer labels, no status signals, just a man comfortable in his own skin. Their eyes met. His were the color of deep water, assessing her in 2 seconds flat, not judging, just calculating. Reading her the way he probably read financial statements, looking for the truth beneath the surface presentation. Ms. Ashford, Mr. Reed, a blur of motion shot past his legs. A girl 8 years old with dark hair and a ponytail and a flower print dress. Her smile was incandescent. "Hi, you're the person Daddy's going to help, right?" He said, "You're in trouble with bad guys." Tori blinked. Most adults didn't discuss criminal investigations with 8-year-olds. This child spoke about bad guys with the casual familiarity other kids reserve for playground games. Marcus's hand rested on his daughter's shoulder, gentle but firm. "Ivy upstairs. Finish your homework. I'll check it before bed." "Okay, Daddy." Ivy waved at Tori, her enthusiasm undimmed by the gravity of the situation. "Good luck, Ms. Ashford." Small feet thundered up wooden stairs. Marcus stepped aside, gesturing Tori into a hallway lined with family photographs. Her eyes caught on one image, Marcus much younger with a beautiful woman and an infant. The woman had warm brown hair and a smile that suggested laughter came easily. A black ribbon adorned the frame's corner. The office was small. 2 computer monitors dominated a desk covered in financial journals and textbooks. A whiteboard on one wall displayed equations and flowcharts in Marcus's precise handwriting. Everything was organized, methodical, controlled. Marcus pointed to a chair across from his desk. "Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out." For the next 90 minutes, Tori laid out the nightmare. 47 million missing. Shell companies in Delaware, Panama, Singapore. Money trails that disappeared into offshore accounts. Transactions bearing her forged digital signature. Michael Hayes' discovery. The board meeting in less than 48 hours. Marcus took notes by hand, his pen moving in quick, efficient strokes. Every 5 minutes, he'd interrupt with a question that cut straight to the heart of a detail she'd glossed over. "Who has access to your digital signature?" "Garrett Sullivan, my CFO, the IT director, my executive assistant." "What does Sullivan control?" "All financial operations, treasury, accounting, investor relations." "Do you have enemies, business rivals who'd benefit from your downfall?" Tori hesitated. The honest answer was yes. She'd crushed competitors, poached their talent, outbid them on lucrative contracts. But orchestrating fraud at this level required more than rivalry. It required intimate knowledge of her company's systems. No one with this kind of access. Marcus's pen stilled. He set it down carefully, the gesture deliberate. When he looked up, something in his expression had shifted from professional distance to dangerous focus. These transactions, the techniques used to hide them. Shell companies layered 7 or 8 deep money bouncing through multiple jurisdictions before disappearing. "I've seen this methodology before. Once, years ago." Tori's throat tightened. "Who?" Marcus stood and walked to a filing cabinet. He pulled out a weathered folder and placed it on the desk between them. Inside was a photograph of the woman from the hallway picture, alive and vibrant. Next to it, a New York Times obituary from November 2020. Elena Martinez Reed, 35, SEC senior investigator, dies in car accident. The words blurred as Tori read. Elena had been investigating securities fraud. Died on a rain-slicked highway when her car lost control, hit a guardrail, rolled into a ravine. No other vehicles involved. Police ruled it an accident. Case closed. "My wife." Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the folder's edge. "Elena called me 30 minutes before she died. She was terrified. Said she'd finally traced money through multiple companies back to a single source in a massive investment group laundering criminal proceeds. She was scheduled to present evidence the next morning. Then, nothing. The police didn't investigate. They did, concluded it was an accident. Wet road, poor visibility, driver error. But Elena was an expert driver. She'd handled worse conditions, and the timing one day before her testimony was too perfect. I've spent 5 years trying to prove it was murder. 5 years chasing shadows. Marcus's jaw clenched, and Tori glimpsed the wound beneath his controlled exterior. This wasn't just about accounting for him. It was about justice denied, about a wife stolen and a system that called it fate. I've lost friends who think I'm paranoid, wasted years obsessing over a case the world considers closed. Sometimes, his voice dropped to barely a whisper. Sometimes I forget Ivy needs a father who's present, not one haunted by ghosts. The vulnerability lasted only a heartbeat before Marcus locked it away. When he spoke again, the forensic accountant was back clinical and precise. I'll help you, Ms. Ashford. But if I find connections to Elena's case, I need your word you'll help me pursue them. Not just clear your name, finish what my wife started. Tori met his gaze. I promise. Then we have work to do. Marcus checked his watch, 9 p.m. We need all your financial records. Every transaction you have authorized for the past 3 years. Tonight. They're at my office. The building's locked. Security won't let us in without authorization. And if I show up, do you want to save your company or do you want to follow rules? The question hung in the air between them. Tori had spent her entire life building legitimacy, proving she belonged in boardrooms filled with Ivy League men who viewed her as an affirmative action hire. Breaking the law went against everything she'd worked for. But those same rules were being weaponized against her. Someone was using her obedience, her predictability as a noose. What do you need me to do? Get those files. But you can't walk in wearing a CEO power suit. Security cameras will identify you instantly. You need to look like someone who belongs there at midnight maintenance cleaning crew, anyone but Victoria Ashford. Marcus disappeared into another room. When he returned, he held a stack of casual clothes, jeans, a gray hoodie, sneakers. My sister Sarah left these here last month. They should fit. Tori stared at the clothes like they were instruments of torture. The suit was her identity, her protection, the physical manifestation of 15 years clawing her way up from poverty. Removing it meant removing the last barrier between her and the vulnerability she'd spent her whole life running from. A soft sound escaped her throat before she could stop it. Please don't make me undress. The words came out barely above a whisper, and she hated how weak they sounded, how broken. But the suit was all she had left, the only thing still making her feel like she had control. Marcus's expression softened fractionally. Then you're not ready to fight. Champions adapt, Ms. Ashford. Wearing armor on the wrong battlefield just gets you killed faster. The truth of it hit like a physical blow. She'd built her empire by knowing when to pivot, when to change strategy. But she'd forgotten how to be anything other than the untouchable CEO. 10 minutes later, Tori emerged from the bathroom. The jeans felt strange after years of tailored wool. The hoodie was too casual, too anonymous. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Just a woman, not a CEO, not a success story, not a symbol, just Victoria fighting to survive. Marcus nodded approval. Better. Now you look like you belong with me. Something about those words made her pulse quicken, though she couldn't explain why. The drive through Manhattan's empty streets felt surreal. Marcus piloted a borrowed Honda Civic, his sister's car, he explained, untraceable to either of them, with methodical precision. He parked 3 blocks from Ashford Analytics, choosing a spot with no security cameras visible. Here's how this works. Marcus pulled an iPad from his backpack, displaying a blueprint of her building. Service entrance, basement level. Security cameras have 4 blind spots. His finger traced a route. We'll enter here, take the Freud elevator, avoid the main lobby. How did you get this information? Your company files SEC reports. Building schematics are in city records. I've been preparing since you called. He closed the iPad and met her eyes. Your CFO is destroying evidence right now. Every hour we wait, the trail gets colder. So we move. They exited the car. Snow fell harder now, muffling sound. Tori's breath came in visible clouds as they approached the service entrance. Marcus moved with quiet confidence, someone who'd done this before. She followed, trying to match his silence. At the door, Marcus paused. You forged a maintenance work order, correct? Tori nodded. She'd used her company's own system to create a fake service request, HVAC repair. urgent requiring after-hours access. The irony wasn't lost on her, using her company's bureaucracy against itself. The door opened. They slipped inside. The basement was a maze of pipes and electrical panels. Marcus navigated with his phone's flashlight and avoiding the main corridors where cameras watched. They reached the freight elevator without encountering anyone. Tori's heart hammered so hard she was certain Marcus could hear it. The elevator rose with agonizing slowness. 38 floors, 39, 40, 41, 42. The doors opened onto her executive floor. Tori's office was at the end of the hall, corner suite, panoramic windows, the throne room of her empire. Now it felt like a mausoleum. Marcus set his backpack on her desk and pulled out equipment. Portable hard drives, USB sticks loaded with forensic software, latex gloves. Boot your computer. I need admin access. Tori's fingers trembled on the keyboard. Her password, Sloan 2010, her daughter's from the year, felt like a betrayal. She was using her child's name to break into her own company. The computer came to life. Marcus plugged in his hard drive and started the download. Every email, every financial record, every transaction log from the past 3 years. This will take 90 minutes. While the data transferred, Tori scanned her inbox. Something made her pause a transaction from 14 months ago. A $2.3 million payment to an entity called Meridian Consulting LLC. She didn't remember authorizing it. Marcus, look at this. He leaned over her shoulder, his presence solid and oddly comforting. His eyes scanned the screen, rapidly processing information at inhuman speed. Routed through a shell company in Delaware, registered to an offshore account in the Caymans. The paperwork was signed by... He clicked deeper into the files. Garrett Sullivan, your CFO, established a relationship with Meridian Consulting 3 years ago. I've never heard of them. Of course not. That's the point. Marcus opened a new browser window and began searching. His face grew progressively darker as results populated. Meridian Capital, investment firm founded in 2015. CEO is Michael Hartford, 62, with board members including 3 former senators and 2 federal judges. On paper, completely legitimate, but more clicking. 6 other companies investigated for money laundering in the past 5 years. All had Meridian connections. And every investigator who got close either vanished or died. Tori's blood turned to ice. Elena! Marcus's hands clenched into fists. Elena was investigating Meridian when she died. She'd traced hundreds of millions through shell companies, proving they were laundering money from drug cartels, arms dealers, trafficking operations. She was going to expose the whole network. Then her car went off the road. The implications crashed over Tori like a wave. She wasn't just fighting fraud. She was up against an organization that killed investigators and destroyed anyone who threatened their operation. They framed me. The words came out hollow. I'm just another obstacle to eliminate. Yes, Marcus's voice was granite. And they're very good at it. A flashlight beam swept across the window. Marcus grabbed Tori and pulled her to the floor behind the desk. They pressed against the wall, hidden in shadow. Footsteps approached in the hallway outside. Keys jangled. Tori's heart felt like it would explode. Marcus's arm was across her shoulders, protective and grounding. She could smell his soap, something simple, ivory maybe, and feel the steady rhythm of his breathing. He'd done this before. Evaded security, broken rules. The realization was both terrifying and reassuring. The door handle turned. Marcus's hand moved to his belt. With horror, Tori realized he was armed. This man, this forensic accountant who made pancakes for his 8-year-old daughter, carried a gun and knew how to use it. A radio crackled in the hallway. Johnson, check floor 38. Sensor triggered. Copy that. The footsteps retreated. The door handle released. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of Tori's ragged breathing. 5 minutes passed. 10. Neither of them moved. Finally, in the darkness, Tori whispered what she'd been afraid to ask since the moment she'd called him. Why are you really helping me? Marcus was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he did, his voice was rough with emotion, barely contained. Because I couldn't save Elena. Maybe I can save you. The simple honesty of it broke something in Tori's chest. For 5 years, no one had protected her. She'd been the bomb, the leader, the one everyone depended on. Even in her marriage, she'd been the stronger one, the provider. And after her husband's betrayal, she'd sworn never to need anyone again. But here in the darkness of her own office, hiding from security guards while committing corporate espionage, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Safety, connection, the knowledge that someone was fighting beside her not because she paid them or threatened them, but because they chose to. The download finished at 2 a.m. Marcus packed the hard drives with the same methodical care he applied to everything. They retraced their route through the basement, emerging into a Manhattan transformed by snow. The city was white and silent, beautiful in a way that felt like a lie. During the drive back to Brooklyn, exhaustion crashed over Tori. The adrenaline drained away, leaving only bone-deep weariness. Her head nodded forward and she jerked awake, then nodded again. Marcus glanced at her. "Sleep. I'll wake you when we arrive." "I can't. You need rest. Tomorrow we analyze data." "That requires a clear head." His matter-of-fact tone was surprisingly comforting. Tori let her eyes close, just for a moment, just a brief rest. She woke on Marcus's couch, disoriented by unfamiliar surroundings. A blanket covered her. Morning light filtered through curtains. The smell of pancakes and something sweeter chocolate drifted from the kitchen. Tori sat up slowly, every muscle protesting. The previous night felt like a fever dream. Had she really broken into her own office? Stolen company data? Fled from security guards? Laughter echoed from the kitchen, followed by Marcus's deeper voice singing something silly. Tori walked to the doorway and stopped. Marcus and Ivy stood at the stove together. Ivy stirred batter in a large bowl while Marcus flipped pancakes with practiced ease. They were singing some ridiculous song about breakfast foods, making up lyrics, and laughing at their own terrible rhymes. Flour dusted Ivy's nose. Marcus's hair was sleep mussed, and he wore an old t-shirt and sweatpants instead of yesterday's flannel. The scene was so domestic, so normal, that Tori felt like an intruder. This wasn't her world. She didn't do silly songs or messy kitchens or lazy Sunday mornings. Even when Sloane was young, Tori had hired nannies to handle breakfast while she answered emails. Ivy spotted her first. "Ms. Ashford, you're awake. Daddy's making chocolate chip pancakes. Do you like them?" Tori's throat tightened. "I haven't had chocolate chip pancakes since college." Marcus plated 3 pancakes and handed them to her. "Then it's time." They ate at a small kitchen table, scarred by years of use. Ivy chattered about her science project, something involving volcanoes and baking soda. Marcus listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he actually understood the chemistry involved. Watching them, Tori felt a pang of loss so acute it nearly stole her breath. This was what she'd sacrificed for success. Mornings with her daughter. Shared meals. The small rituals that built families. She told herself that Sloane was better off at Sterling Academy, receiving a top-tier education, making connections with the children of senators and tech billionaires. But what if she'd been wrong? What if Sloane would have traded every prestigious opportunity for a mother who sang silly songs and made chocolate chip pancakes? After breakfast, Ivy left for school with Marcus's sister, Sarah. Marcus and Tori retreated to his office. 20 hours remained before the board meeting. The data from last night filled both monitors. Marcus wrote code to parse through thousands of transactions, looking for patterns. Tori reviewed financial reports, her CEO's eye-catching anomalies a forensic accountant might miss. They worked in synchronization, each compensating for the other's blind spots. When Marcus found a pattern, Tori provided business context. When Tori spotted an anomaly, Marcus traced the money trail. At 2 p.m., Tori leaned forward. "Here, a $5.2 million payment listed as a consulting fee to Meridian. But I never authorized any consulting contract." Marcus pulled up the paperwork. "Signed by Garrett Sullivan 3 years ago, November 15th. Look at the date." Tori checked her calendar. "I was in Tokyo negotiating an expansion deal. Garrett had signing authority while I was overseas." Convenient. They dug deeper into Garrett Sullivan's background. Stanford MBA. 5 years at Goldman Sachs before joining Ashford Analytics 12 years ago. Clean record. Wife, 2 children. Son Ethan, 19, freshman at NYU. Model employee, loyal and hardworking. Until Marcus found the article. It was buried in NYU's student newspaper archives, dated 6 months ago. Ethan Sullivan arrested on drug possession charges. Felony quantities. Facing 5 years in prison. Tori stared at the screen. "I had no idea." "Because the case was dropped." Marcus scrolled to a follow-up article. All charges dismissed, no explanation given. The prosecutor's office declined to comment. They looked at each other, the same realization dawning simultaneously. Meridian, Tori whispered. They helped Garrett's son. In exchange for, in exchange for Garrett betraying you, setting you up, making you the perfect scapegoat. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Garrett hadn't wanted to destroy her. He'd been forced to. Someone had threatened his child, then offered salvation at the price of Tori's life. At 6 p.m., Tori called Garrett on speakerphone. His voice when he answered was strained, frightened. Tori, where are you? The FBI came to the office today with a warrant. They're saying you're involved in money laundering. The FBI, the investigation had accelerated faster than Tori had imagined possible. Someone with serious power was pushing this forward, trying to bury her before she could fight back. Garrett, listen to me. Ethan's drug charges. Who made them disappear? Silence stretched for 5 seconds. 10, 15. Garrett, his voice when it came was broken. I'm so sorry, Tori. I'm so sorry. They said they'd kill him. My son. I didn't have a choice. Who are they? I don't know names, just voices on encrypted calls. Messages that self-delete. They showed me a news article about an SEC investigator who died in a car accident. As a warning. Marcus leaned toward the phone. Elena Reed. Garrett's sharp intake of breath confirmed his recognition. Who are you? Marcus Reed, her husband. Oh God, they killed her. And now they're going to kill Tori. The call ended with logistics. Garrett was in federal custody cooperating with investigators, but terrified for his son's safety. He didn't know who ran Meridian, only that their reach was vast and their methods ruthless. After midnight, Marcus and Tori assembled their presentation. The evidence was damning clear proof that Garrett had been blackmailed, that Tori's signatures were forged, that Meridian Capital orchestrated everything. They had forensic analysis, financial trails, documentation of Elena's investigation. It should have been enough to exonerate Tori, should have been enough to shift suspicion from victim to perpetrator. But at 3 a.m., doubt crept in. Tori stood and paced Marcus's small office. What if the board doesn't believe us? What if Meridian has people inside already poisoning the well? Marcus leaned back in his chair, exhaustion evident in the lines around his eyes. Then we present evidence anyway, and we prepare for war. War? Tori laughed, but the sound held no humor. I'm not a fighter, Marcus. I'm a CEO. I negotiate deals. I build consensus. I don't know how to fight people who murder investigators. Neither did I. 5 years ago. Marcus stood and walked to her, his presence solid and grounding. Tori, if we present this evidence, we're declaring war on Meridian. They killed Elena. They'll come for us. Then what do you want me to do? Run, take Sloan, and disappear. Start over somewhere with new identities. The idea had crossed her mind more than once during the long night. She had money in offshore accounts, resources. She could vanish and build a new life. But running meant letting them win, meant letting Elena's killers remain free, meant teaching Sloan that when powerful people attack you, surrender. I want to tell you to run, Marcus admitted. I want to say take your daughter and find safety. But I've been running for 5 years now, hiding in work and raising Ivy, pretending I have moved on. The truth is I haven't. I'm tired of running. So we fight. So we fight. At 6 a.m., Tori changed back into her suit. The armor felt different now. Not protection, but costume. She'd seen behind the curtain of her own life and couldn't unsee it. Marcus drove them to Manhattan in silence. The sun rose over the East River, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, beautiful and oblivious to human drama. They arrived at Ashford Analytics at 9:45, 15 minutes before the board meeting. Media vans lined the street. Somehow word had leaked. Cameras flashed as Tori exited the car. Reporters shouted questions she didn't answer. Inside the lobby, FBI agents waited. Leading them was a woman in her late 30s with blonde hair pulled back severely and eyes that missed nothing. Her badge read Special Agent Catherine Sterling, Financial Crimes Division. Marcus stepped between Sterling and Tori. She has counsel. Any questions go through her lawyer. Sterling sized Marcus up with the same assessment he'd given Tori 2 nights ago. And you are Marcus Reed, forensic accountant. Recognition flickered across Sterling's face. Reed, I know that name. Your wife, Elena Reed, SEC investigator. You did your homework. It's my job. Sterling turned back to Tori. Ms. Ashford, new evidence has been presented to the federal prosecutor. We have an expanded warrant to seize your company's records. You're officially under investigation for money laundering and securities fraud. The words hit like physical blows. They'd just proven Tori was framed, and now the FBI was accelerating charges. We're presenting evidence to the board that proves evidence that suggests a conspiracy, Sterling interrupted. But someone at the Department of Justice is pushing hard to charge you anyway. I recommend you get a lawyer. A good one. Be very careful, Ms. Ashford. The subtext was clear. Sterling herself wasn't the enemy, but someone above her was. Someone with enough power to override an FBI agent's judgment and force an investigation forward despite contradictory evidence. Marcus whispered urgently, "We need to disappear. Now." But Tori's phone buzzed before she could respond. A text from Sloan. "Mom, can I come home early? From school. Miss you. Pick me up Friday at Logan Airport, 2 p.m. Tori's heart seized. Sloan, her daughter. If Meridian Netbarn knew about her existence, and of course they did, they'd use her, leverage her, hurt her to control Tori. Marcus saw her face change and understood immediately. Get Ivy. Call Sarah. Another text arrived. Unknown number. A photo of Ivy outside her school in Queens, backpack on her shoulders, laughing with friends. The caption was simple, cute daughter. Would be shame if something happened. The world tilted. Tori grabbed Marcus's arm to keep from falling. They weren't just threatening her anymore. They were targeting children. Innocent girls whose only crime was being loved. Marcus's expression transformed. All the warmth she'd glimpsed over the past 2 days vanished, replaced by something cold and lethal. He pulled out his phone and texted rapidly. Emergency plan, he said, voice clipped and military precise. Sarah picks up Ivy, immediately takes her to a safe house. Sloan stays at school. We do not, under any circumstances, let them get near our daughters. Agent Sterling watched this exchange with sharp interest. What's going on? Marcus showed her the photo. Sterling's jaw tightened. That's a threat against a minor. Federal offense. You can't do anything. Marcus cut her off. Whoever sent this is already gone. Whoever they work for has DXJ officials running interference. We're on our own. The board meeting was in 10 minutes. Tori had to make a choice, present evidence, and declare war or run and save what remained of her life. She looked at Marcus, this man she'd known for barely 2 days, who'd risked everything to help her. Who'd shown her what it meant to fight for truth, even when the world said to surrender. Who'd given her a glimpse of the life she'd sacrificed for success. Silly songs, chocolate chip pancakes, genuine connection. The boardroom on the 43rd floor felt like a courtroom. 8 directors sat around the mahogany table, their expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed satisfaction. Robert Kendrick occupied the seat closest to the head, her trusted advisor for a decade, the man who'd given her that first $2 million when she was nobody. His silver hair and tailored suit projected authority, but something in his posture seemed wrong. Too rigid, too careful. Tori stood at the presentation screen, Marcus beside her with the laptop. Below them, media vans multiplied like bacteria. Agent Sterling and her team waited in the lobby, and somewhere in this building, Meridian's eyes watched everything. Gentlemen, Tori kept her voice level, CEO cold. I've been framed. Meridian Capital orchestrated this fraud. I can prove it. Marcus triggered the first slide. Forensic analysis of the forged signatures appeared, pixel-level comparisons showing subtle discrepancies invisible to casual inspection. Then came the money trails, animated flows through shell companies that lit up like Christmas lights across a world map. Delaware to Panama to Singapore to the Caymans, each hop designed to obscure the destination. Garrett Sullivan appeared via video link from FBI custody. His face was haggard, years added overnight. I was blackmailed. My son faced felony charges. Someone made them disappear and told me I owed them. They said cooperate or Ethan would be found dead of an overdose. I believed them. Who gave you orders? One of the venture capitalists demanded. Encrypted calls, messages that self-destructed. I never saw faces or heard real names, but the money all traced back to Meridian Capital. Marcus advanced to the next slide. Elena's investigation records obtained through Freedom of Information requests over 5 years. The same shell company structures, the same auditing techniques, the same signature methodology. My wife died investigating these people. Officially, it was ruled an accident, but the timing, the method, the convenient closure all suggest otherwise. Meridian has been laundering billions for criminal enterprises. They infiltrate legitimate companies, use them as fronts, then dispose of anyone who discovers the truth. Ms. Ashford is simply their latest target. The board members lean forward, examining documents Marcus distributed. Financial statements that proved Tori had no motive for embezzlement. Alibis showing she was overseas or in documented meetings when key transactions occurred. Expert testimony from Derek Brennan, Marcus's former colleague, who'd independently verified the forensic analysis. For 40 minutes, they presented evidence that should have exonerated Tori completely, should have shifted the investigation from victim to perpetrator. But Robert Kendrick's expression grew more troubled with each slide. At 11:30, the board called for a vote. Retain Victoria Ashford as CEO, suspend Garrett Sullivan pending full investigation, refer all evidence to federal authorities. 7 hands rose. Robert's remained on the table. Tori felt the betrayal like a knife between her ribs. Robert, you voted against me. He stood slowly, adjusting his tie with careful precision. I'm voting for the company's safety, Tori. Meridian Capital is powerful, very powerful. Pursuing them could bring more trouble than it's worth. Sometimes the wisest course is to cut losses, settle quietly, and move forward. Cut losses, they framed me, destroyed my reputation. And fighting them could destroy the company entirely. Think about Sloan, about your future, about the employees who depend on this organization. Robert's face remained oddly blank, as if reading from a script. Maybe this battle isn't worth fighting. The words hung in the air, and Tori suddenly understood. Robert wasn't just cautious, he was complicit, or controlled, or both. Marcus caught her eye and gave a fractional nod. He'd seen it too. The meeting adjourned at noon, with Tori technically retaining her position, but under a cloud of suspicion. The board promised support, but their eyes held doubt. In corporate politics, perception mattered more than truth. Agent Sterling intercepted them in the hallway. Ms. Ashford, we need to talk, privately. They followed her to a conference room. Sterling closed the door and pulled the blinds. I'm going to redirect. Someone at the Department of Justice is pushing this prosecution despite evidence suggesting your innocence. I've been ordered to arrest you within 48 hours unless I produce irrefutable proof of a larger conspiracy. We just gave you that proof, Marcus's voice was granite. I know, but my supervisor says it's insufficient. Says Garrett Sullivan could be lying to save himself. Says Elena Reed's death is irrelevant because it was ruled accidental. Sterling's jaw clenched. Someone very powerful wants you buried, Ms. Ashford, and they're using federal resources to do it. Tori's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. This time the photo showed Ivy outside her school, closer angle, higher resolution. The message, we can reach them anytime. Comply or we demonstrate. Marcus's face drained of color. He speed-dialed his sister. Sarah, did you get Ivy? We're pulling up to the school now. Marcus, what's? Get her. Don't let her out of your sight. Take her to the Queen's safe house. Use the secondary route. Check for tails. Go dark until I contact you. He hung up and turned to Sterling. They're threatening our children. Ivy is 8 years old. If anything happens to her because your bosses are protecting criminals. I'm not protecting anyone. Sterling's eyes flashed. I've been investigating Meridian for 2 years, quietly, off the books. Because every time I get close, officially evidence disappears or witnesses recant. Someone inside justice is running interference. The admission changed everything. Sterling wasn't an enemy wearing a badge. She was another investigator fighting the same shadow war Marcus had waged for 5 years. Can you protect them? Tori's voice came out smaller than intended. Ivy and my daughter Sloan. I have people watching your sister's house, but my jurisdiction only extends so far. If Meridian wants to hurt you, they have resources beyond law enforcement. You need to disappear. Let me build a case while you're off the grid. Marcus shook his head. They'll kill our daughters to flush us out. The only way to protect them is to end this. Now. How? We make Meridian show themselves. Force them into the open where you can nail them with evidence too public to suppress. Sterling considered this. Michael Hartford has a private meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. Investors, only high security. If you could get into his systems during that window, we'd need a distraction, something big enough to occupy his security team. I can arrange a protest, media coverage, make it look grassroots, but time it to your needs. Sterling pulled out a burner phone. Take this, encrypted. If you find evidence, send it to me. I'll make sure it reaches the right people. They left through the service entrance, avoiding cameras and reporters. Marcus drove while Tori called Sloan at Sterling Academy. 3 rings, 4, 5. Mom. Sloan's voice held tentative hope mixed with residual anger from their last conversation. Sweetie, I need you to stay at school this weekend. Don't come home Friday. It's not safe. What, Mom? No. I haven't seen you in 4 months. I don't care about your work emergency or whatever. This isn't about work. Someone is trying to hurt me, and they might use you to do it. Please, Sloan, stay where you are. You're always choosing something else over me. The teenager's pain cut through the phone line like a saw. I should have known. I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. Sloan, I'm trying to protect you. The line went dead. Tori stared at her phone, tears blurring her vision. She'd failed at the one thing that mattered, being Sloan's mother. And now, trying to save her daughter's life, she'd driven another wedge between them. Marcus drove in silence for several blocks before speaking. She doesn't understand now, but she will. When this is over, when she's safe, you'll have time to rebuild. What if there is no when this is over? What if Meridian kills us? Then she'll know you died protecting her. That's worth something. And the certainty in his voice suggested he'd made peace with his own mortality years ago. He'd been ready to die hunting Elena's killers. Only Ivy had kept him alive, kept him functional. Now both their daughters hung in the balance. They drove north, avoiding major highways where toll cameras could track them. Marcus used cash at gas stations, paid for everything in small bills, left no digital trail. His paranoia over 5 years had taught him tradecraft most people never learned. Tell me about Elena. Tori needed to understand the woman whose death had set all this in motion. How you met, what she was like. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. He was silent for so long Tori thought he wouldn't answer. Then slowly he began talking. We met during a case. I was consulting for the SEC. She was a junior investigator. Insider trading probe, lots of spreadsheets, and boring testimony. We worked 80-hour weeks for 3 months straight. Elena had this gift for seeing patterns. She'd look at a transaction log and spot the one anomaly buried in thousands of legitimate entries. Like she could hear the numbers telling stories. Snow fell heavier now, turning the Catskills into a monochrome painting. Marcus's voice took on a distant quality, as if he was watching memories on a screen only he could see. She made me laugh. I was this uptight accountant who lived in Excel spreadsheets, and she'd crack jokes about accrual accounting methods. Terrible jokes, but they made boring work bearable. We got married at a courthouse in Brooklyn, and she said she didn't need a fancy ceremony. Just needed me. Ivy came 2 years later. Best day of my life, holding that tiny person who was half Elena. His voice cracked slightly on his daughter's name. Tori watched his profile, seeing the grief he carried like a second skeleton. The night Elena died, she called me at 7:30. She'd stayed late at the office, was driving home through Queens. Excited and scared in equal measure. Said she'd finally cracked it. Traced money from Meridian Capital through multiple shell companies all the way back to Mexican cartels, Russian arms dealers, trafficking networks in Eastern Europe. $400 million washed clean through legitimate American businesses whose executives had no idea their companies were crime fronts. She was scheduled to present evidence the next morning. Testimony that would bring down executives, politicians, judges, everyone connected to Meridian. The case of her career. She told me, "This is why I do this job, Marcus. To make the world safer for people like Ivy." Those were almost her last words. Marcus's jaw clenched so hard Tori could see muscles jumping. I told her to be careful. Come home. We'd celebrate. She laughed and said, "Always the worrier." Then I love you. Tell Ivy mommy will read her 2 stories tonight. 30 minutes later, state police called. Car accident. Elena lost control on a highway she'd driven 1,000 times, skidded off the road, hit a guardrail, rolled into a ravine. Dead instantly. They said wet pavement, reduced visibility, driver error. But Elena was expert level. She'd driven through blizzards, ice storms, conditions that would terrify most people. And the road was straight, well-lit, freshly paved. The timing one day before testimony was mathematically improbable. Police thought I was paranoid, grief-stricken husband looking for someone to blame. They closed the case as accidental death, told me to seek therapy, told me to move on for Ivy's sake. I tried. God, I tried. Went back to work, smiled for Ivy, pretended I believed the official story. But every night I'd pull out Elena's files and trace the same patterns she'd found. Every weekend I'd interview sources who'd talk to her. And slowly, over months, I built a shadow case proving her death was no accident. I quit my job when my firm told me to stop investigating. Lost friends who thought I'd gone crazy. Burned through savings paying for private investigators and document analysts. But I couldn't stop. Because if I stopped, Elena's killers won. They got away with murder and continued their operation. More victims, more laundered blood money, more investigators scared into silence. The confession poured out of Marcus like poison lanced from a wound. Tori understood now why he'd helped her so immediately, why he'd risked everything. She wasn't just a client. She was a second chance at justice, a way to finish what Elena started. I'm sorry, the words felt inadequate. I'm sorry you've carried this alone. I'm done being alone, and I'm done running. They reached the cabin at 7:30 p.m. It sat in a clearing surrounded by pine trees, heavy with snow smoke curling from the stone chimney. Marcus killed the engine and sat motionless, hand on his gun. Someone's here. Tori's pulse spiked. Who knows about this place? 3 people, my sister Sarah, Derek Brennan, and Frank Callahan, a journalist I contacted 3 years ago about Elena's case. The cabin door opened. An older man stepped out, hands raised to show he was unarmed, silver beard, weathered face, kind eyes surrounded by crow's feet. He wore jeans and a thick wool sweater, looking more like a professor than a threat. Marcus exited the car cautiously, weapon drawn, but pointed at the ground. Frank, been expecting you. News about Miss Ashford has been hard to miss. Frank's voice carried the rasp of a lifelong smoker. Figured you'd head here eventually. They entered the cabin. It was small but well-maintained, rough wooden furniture, a stone fireplace throwing heat shelves lined with books. Frank had clearly been waiting for hours. Files covered the dining table, organized with the precision of someone who'd spent decades investigating complex stories. You contacted me 3 years ago about Elena Reed's death. Frank settled into a chair with a slight wince favoring his left leg. Said you had evidence her car accident was actually murder. I've been tracking Meridian Capital ever since. Marcus holstered his weapon. You believe they killed her. I know they did. They've killed 6 other investigators in the past decade. Car accidents, suicides, random muggings gone wrong. Always conveniently timed. Always ruled accidental or tragic, but ultimately unprosecutable. Frank spread photographs across the table. Different faces, different cities, different circumstances of death. But the pattern was unmistakable once you saw it. Thomas Brennan, FBI, Financial Crimes, 2018. Fell from his apartment balcony. Ruled suicide, though he'd shown no signs of depression. Rebecca Winters, IRS investigator, 2019. Accused of sexual harassment by 3 subordinates. Resigned in disgrace. Accusations later recanted, but her career was destroyed. Connor Phillips, investigative journalist with the Washington Post, 2021. Mugged outside his apartment. Killed for his wallet, which was found 3 blocks away with all cash and cards intact. Tori felt sick. This wasn't just about Elena. Meridian had been systematically eliminating threats for years, and the system had failed to connect the dots. How do they operate? Marcus leaned over the files, examining documents with his forensic accountant's eye. Front company is legitimate. Meridian Capital manages $4 billion in assets, mostly for wealthy individuals and institutional investors. Completely above board on paper. But underneath, they have operatives placed in key positions at dozens of companies. CFOs, controllers, treasury directors. These operatives create channels for washing criminal money through normal business operations. The actual executives, people like Miss Ashford, have no idea their companies are being used as fronts. When someone gets suspicious, Meridian frames them, destroys their credibility, or kills them. They've refined the process to an art form, and they have protection at the highest levels. DOJ officials who quash investigations, federal judges who dismiss cases, senators who redirect oversight committees. Frank pulled out a structure chart showing Meridian's public leadership. Michael Hartford as CEO, various executives and board members, all respected figures with impeccable credentials. Hartford is just the face. The real operations are run by someone codenamed the Architect. No one knows who they are, never been photographed, never appear in court documents or depositions. They're a ghost. How do we catch a ghost? Tori's question hung in the air. Frank smiled grimly. We make them visible, force them to act in ways that leave evidence, which is exactly what you've started doing. By refusing to go quietly, by gathering evidence, by getting FBI attention, you're disrupting their pattern. They don't like disruptions. Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression hardened. Agent Sterling, Hartford is confirmed for a meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. She's arranging the protest distraction. Then we hack his systems during that window. Frank pulled out a laptop. I've been collecting access credentials and system vulnerabilities for 18 months. We can get in. Question is whether we get out alive. The three of them spent the next 2 hours planning. Frank's journalist contacts provided information Marcus's forensic skills couldn't access. Tori's intimate knowledge of corporate systems identified vulnerabilities an outsider would miss. They assembled an attack plan that was either brilliant or suicidal, depending on your perspective. At 9:30, Frank's phone rang. He answered on speaker. Frank, it's Catherine Sterling. Are Marcus Reed and Victoria Ashford with you? Tori recognized the FBI agent's voice. Frank confirmed their presence. Good. I need you to know something. The warrant for Ms. Ashford's arrest wasn't my idea. It came from DOJ higher-ups who are clearly protecting Meridian. I've been investigating them quietly for 2 years off the books because official channels keep getting blocked. The photo of Ivy wasn't sent by my people. It was a threat from Meridian meant to scare you into compliance. I have agents watching your sister's house right now. Marcus, Ivy is safe for now. Marcus's shoulders relaxed fractionally. Can you keep her safe? As long as she's at the safe house, yes, but my jurisdiction has limits. If you want better than for now, you need to help me take down Meridian completely. All of them, including whoever the architect really is. What's the plan? Frank leaned toward the phone. You hack Hartford's systems tomorrow. Get financial records proving the conspiracy. I'll make sure those records reach journalists, FBI field offices, congressional oversight committees, everyone. Too many copies to suppress. Once it's public, Meridian can't make it disappear. They finalized logistics. Sterling would stage a protest outside Hartford's building at exactly 11 a.m., drawing security and media attention. Marcus and Tori would hack remotely from a secure location, downloading evidence. Frank would publish the story simultaneously, making sure multiple outlets received copies. It was a good plan, maybe good enough to work. Frank ended the call and stood stretching his back. I'm going to make coffee. Going to be a long night preparing for... The window exploded inward. Glass shards sprayed the room. Frank dove behind the couch. Marcus grabbed Tori and pulled her to the floor as bullets tore through the cabin walls. Wood splintered. Books burst apart. The lamp shattered, plunging them into firelight and chaos. Back door, Marcus had his gun out, returning fire through the shattered window. Go! Tori crawled toward the kitchen. Behind her, more windows exploded. Men shouted outside, at least 4 voices, maybe more. Not police. Mercenaries. Frank staggered toward them, blood spreading across his left thigh. He'd been hit, but was still mobile. They traced my call. I thought I was careful. No time. Marcus fired 3 more shots, providing cover. Move. They burst through the back door into snow and darkness. Behind them, the cabin was under assault from all sides. Men in tactical gear advanced with military precision, their weapons spitting fire. Marcus led them into the tree line. Branches tore at Tori's face. Her lungs burned. Frank limped badly, leaving a blood trail in the snow, but he kept moving through sheer determination. They reached Marcus's car hidden 200 yards from the cabin. The engine roared to life. Tires spun in snow before catching traction. They accelerated away as the cabin exploded. Propane tank or intentional demolition, Tori couldn't tell. Marcus drove with controlled fury, checking mirrors constantly. Frank, how bad? Through and through. Hurts like hell, but nothing vital. Frank pressed his hand against the wound, blood seeping between fingers. They wanted us dead. All of us. The architect's reach is long, Tori whispered, remembering Sterling's warning. They drove for an hour before stopping at a motel off the New Jersey Turnpike. Cash only, no ID required, the kind of place that catered to people who didn't want to be found. Marcus helped Frank inside while Tori kept watch. At 3 a.m., Sterling called again. Frank Callahan is alive. My team got there 10 minutes after the shooters left. He's injured but stable in protective custody. Marcus and Tori exchanged confused looks. Frank's right here with us. Silence on Sterling's end. That's impossible. I'm looking at him in a hospital bed, gunshot wound to the leg. He's been sedated, but... Her voice changed. Shit. How many people knew about that cabin? Marcus's face went white. 3. You, me, and Derek Brennan from my old firm. Then one of them talked, either under duress or willingly. You've been compromised. The implications crashed over them. Someone close had betrayed their location, given Meridian the information needed to execute an assassination. And Frank was either lying about his identity or there were 2 Frank Callahans involved in this mess. Tori looked at the older man on the motel bed, really looked at him. The silver beard could be dyed. The weathered face could be makeup. The kindly journalist persona could be an elaborate act. Who are you really? Frank, or whoever he was, met her gaze steadily. Exactly who I said. A journalist investigating Meridian. But you're right to be suspicious. In this game, trust gets people killed. Marcus kept his gun trained on Frank. Prove it. Show me credentials, references, something that proves you're not setting us up. Frank pulled out his phone and made a call. He handed it to Marcus. This is Harold Simmons, editor at the Washington Post. Yes, Frank Callahan works for us. Has for 37 years. Won a Pulitzer in '98 for the Enron investigation. Currently on investigative leave, pursuing a story about financial corruption. Is there a problem? Marcus handed the phone back. No problem. Sorry to bother you. But doubt had been planted. They were 3 people running from an organization with infinite resources, and paranoia was the only rational response. At 8 a.m., Marcus called Derek Brennan. They met at a diner in Trenton, public and anonymous. Derek wore his standard corporate uniform, pressed shirt, conservative tie, wedding ring prominent on his left hand. Everything about him screamed normal, trustworthy, boring. FBI is looking for you. News says you're helping a wanted criminal. Derek stirred sugar into coffee he wouldn't drink. Tori's not a criminal, she's a victim. Derek studied Tori across the booth. What do you need? Access to the firm's forensic software, military-grade encryption breakers. We need to hack Meridian Capital's systems. Marcus, I have a wife, 2 daughters, a mortgage. I can't. Tori leaned forward, interrupting. I have a daughter too, 16 years old, named Sloan. For 15 years, I put my career first. Missed recitals, forgot birthdays, sent her away to boarding school so I could work uninterrupted. I told myself I was providing for her future. Really, I was just scared of failing, of being the poor kid from Detroit who didn't belong. Now someone is trying to destroy me. Not just take my company, take my freedom, my life. And when Sloan sees the news, she'll remember me as either a criminal or a coward. Her voice softened, genuine emotion breaking through corporate polish. I'm not asking as a CEO. I'm asking as a mother who wants one chance to prove to her daughter that standing up matters. That truth matters. That sometimes you fight even when fighting seems impossible. Derek was quiet for a long moment. His eyes held the distant look of a man thinking about his own children, imagining what he'd want someone to do if they were in Sloan's position. My oldest is 9, Emma. She asked me last week what I do for a living. I told her I find truth in numbers. She said, so you're like a detective. I said, yes, exactly like a detective. He slid a flash drive across the table. Firm's forensic software, 24-hour activation, then it self-destructs. Use it wisely. And if anyone asks, we never met. They drove to a safe house Sterling had arranged an FBI asset in suburban Connecticut, unconnected to any active investigation. Marcus set up equipment while Tori monitored news coverage. The story had exploded across financial media. CEO flees FBI, Ashford Analytics fraud scandal, manhunt for Victoria Ashford. Her face was everywhere, frozen in that moment of shock when reporters ambushed her outside the office. She looked guilty, desperate, exactly how Meridian wanted her to appear. At 9 a.m., Tori's phone buzzed. Text from Sloan. Mom, I'm sorry I yelled. I know work is important. I'm coming home anyway. Landing at Logan Airport Friday at 2 p.m. Can't wait to see you. Love you. Tori's heart sank. Sloan was defying her instruction to stay at school. The teenager thought her mother was pushing her away again, choosing work over family. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. Marcus Sloan is... Another text. Unknown number. Photo of Sloan at Sterling Academy walking across the quad with friends. The caption made Tori's blood freeze. Beautiful girl. Would be shame if she never made it home. The phone rang immediately. Tori answered with shaking hands. The voice was electronically distorted, robotic, and inhuman. Ms. Ashford Sloan left school early this morning. Took a train to Boston, planning to fly home and surprise you. But she never made it to Logan Airport. She's with us now. If you hurt her, we won't. If you cooperate, bring everything, all files, all evidence. Marcus Reed's research on Elena Reed. Every shred of proof you've gathered. Bring it to Chelsea Piers Warehouse, 7:04 p.m. today. Come alone. We'll trade files for your daughter. How do I know she's safe? A second phone appeared on the screen. Video call. Sloan sat in a chair, hands zip-tied, duct tape over her mouth. Her eyes were wide with terror, but she was unharmed. Behind her, concrete walls and industrial lighting either suggested a warehouse or storage facility. 4 p.m., Warehouse 7, come alone or she dies. The call ended. Tori collapsed. The world spun, narrowed to a single point of focus, her daughter in danger. Sloan, who Tori had pushed away and neglected and failed to protect. The child she'd sacrificed for ambition was now paying the price for her mother's choices. Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. We'll get her back, I swear. How if we give them the evidence, we have nothing. They'll kill us both. If we don't give them the evidence, they kill Sloan. We give them fake evidence. Make it look real enough to pass initial inspection. By the time they realize it's fabricated, we'll have Sloan and be gone. Tori wanted to believe him, but Meridian had killed Elena. Murdered investigators operated with impunity for years. They weren't amateurs to be fooled by Hollywood tricks. Sterling arrived within the hour. She brought an FBI tactical team, blueprints of Chelsea Piers, and a plan that sounded desperate even as she explained it. We'll surround the warehouse, every exit covered. When the trade happens, we extract Sloan and arrest everyone on site. Marcus shook his head. They'll have counter surveillance. Any sign of cops, and they execute her. Then we stay hidden until the last possible moment. That's not good enough. These people kill federal investigators. They won't hesitate to murder a teenager. They argued strategy while Marcus created fake files. He used Derek's software to generate realistic financial documents, manufacturing evidence detailed enough to fool anyone who wasn't Marcus himself. Tori watched his fingers fly across keyboards, building an elaborate forgery that might buy them 30 seconds of deception. At 1 p.m., Marcus called Ivy. Tori heard the little girl's voice through the phone, frightened, but trying to be brave. Daddy, when are you coming home? Soon, baby, very soon. But I need to tell you something important. If anything happens to Daddy... No, Ivy's scream was pure terror. You promised you wouldn't go away like Mommy. Marcus's voice cracked. I know, sweetheart, and Daddy's going to keep that promise. But just in case you need to know, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. The reason I get up every morning. The reason I fight. I love you more than all the numbers in all the world. I love you too, Daddy. Come home safe. He hung up and wiped his eyes roughly. Tori had never seen him cry before. The vulnerability felt like an intrusion, but also a gift, proof that beneath the controlled exterior lived a man capable of profound love and equally profound fear. At 2 p.m., Tori recorded a video message for Sloan, just in case. Sweetheart, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. I need you to know things I should have said years ago. I'm sorry. Sorry for every missed recital, every boarding school drop-off, every birthday spent in conference rooms instead of with you. I thought providing for you meant giving you everything money could buy. I was wrong. What you needed was me, present listening, loving you without condition or distraction. I failed, but Sloan, everything I did today was for you. I fought because you deserve a mother who fights, not a mother who runs or hides behind corporate titles. I love you. I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it until it was almost too late. Be brave, be braver than I was, and know that in the end, I finally became the mother you deserved. She saved the file and handed Marcus the laptop. He watched without comment, understanding the necessity of final words. At 3 p.m., they prepared to leave. Sterling's team was already in position around Chelsea Piers, snipers on rooftops, tactical units in unmarked vans, agents posing as dock workers and truck drivers. An invisible net waiting to close. Marcus handed Tori an earpiece nearly invisible once inserted. I'll be listening. If anything goes wrong, if they hurt you, I'm coming in. They said come alone. I don't care what they said. I'm not letting you walk into that warehouse without backup. Tori touched his face, a gesture of intimacy that surprised them both. We win this fight, then we see what happens next. Then we see. They kissed, not desperate or passionate, but steady and sure, two people making a promise about the future if they survive to have one. At 3:45, Tori drove to Manhattan alone. The laptop with fake files sat on the passenger seat. The earpiece whispered Marcus's breathing in her ear. And somewhere in Chelsea Piers, her daughter waited in the hands of killers. The warehouse district was industrial and cold, full of shipping containers and loading docks. Warehouse 7 sat near the water, isolated from neighboring buildings. No witnesses, no casual foot traffic, just wind off the Hudson and the sense of a trap closing. Tori parked and exited the car. Her heels clicked on broken pavement. The laptop felt heavier than it should, pregnant with lies that might save or doom them all. She reached the warehouse door, took a breath, opened it. Inside, industrial lighting cast harsh shadows. Sloan sat 50 feet away, tied to a chair, tape over her mouth. Alive, unharmed. Tori's relief was so intense she nearly fell. Then a man stepped from the shadows. Not hired muscle or anonymous mercenary. Someone Tori knew. Someone she'd trusted for a decade. Robert Kendrick, her advisor, her mentor. The man who'd given her that first $2 million. His silver hair was perfect, his suit immaculate, his smile cold as Arctic ice. Hello, Victoria. I believe you have something that belongs to me. The world tilted. Robert. It had been Robert all along. The architect wasn't some faceless ghost. It was the man who'd been inside her company since day one, who'd had access to everything, who'd voted against her in the board meeting with that strange blank expression. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Tori's mind went blank for 3 full seconds. Robert Kendrick, the architect, the man who'd believed in her when no one else would, who'd sat on her board for 10 years, who'd advised her through every major decision. He'd been the enemy all along, sitting in her meetings, watching her build an empire he was secretly using as a crime front. You look surprised. Robert circled her slowly, hands clasped behind his back like a professor lecturing students. You shouldn't be, Baptima. I told you at the board meeting I was your first investor. $2 million when you were nobody with a business plan and a dream. I've been inside Ashford Analytics from the very beginning. Why? Because legitimate companies make perfect fronts. Clean reputations, respected CEOs. Regulatory compliance officers who actually believe in the mission. You sign documents thinking they're consulting contracts or investment deals. Meanwhile, we're washing $400 million through your company over 5 years. And you, brilliant, ethical Victoria, never suspected a thing. The casual pride in his voice made her sick. He wasn't just confessing, he was boasting. Garrett Sullivan was your plant. Of course, placed him 12 years ago when your company was small enough that adding a talented CFO felt like a miracle. He was loyal, hardworking, everything you wanted. Until his son got into trouble and Garrett grew a conscience. Started leaving clues for you, tiny breadcrumbs he hoped you'd follow. That's when I activated the crisis. Frame you, force you into the open, eliminate the problem. Robert's eyes held no warmth, no recognition of their decade-long relationship. Tori was just a business problem requiring a business solution. You killed Elena Reed. I gave the order. She'd traced money through 6 different companies back to Meridian. Would have exposed judges, senators, CEOs, our entire network. Her testimony would have destroyed billions in laundering infrastructure. So yes, I had her removed. Clean accident, closed case, grieving husband, left to conspiracy theories no one believed. Behind him, Sloan made muffled sounds against the tape. Tears streamed down her face. Tori wanted to run to her hold, her promise everything would be okay. But Robert stood between them, and she had no weapon, no leverage, no power. Give me the real files, Victoria. I know Marcus Reed is too smart for simple tricks. The laptop contains forgeries. Where's the actual evidence? Already uploaded. Tori heard her own voice steady despite terror. Time-locked server. If we don't check in by 6 p.m., files auto-released to 50 journalists and FBI field offices nationwide. You can kill me, but you can't stop the truth. Robert's expression didn't change. Predictable. Reed's methodology always have a dead man switch. It's why he survived 5 years when smarter people died. But you've made a tactical error. He gestured. 2 men appeared from behind cargo containers, dragging someone between them. Frank Callahan, the real one, injured and barely conscious. They dropped him at Robert's feet. Your journalist friend thought he was careful, encrypted communications off the books investigation. But everyone makes mistakes. His source inside Justice Department. That was my source. Every piece of information Frank thought was secret intel was actually bait, drawing him closer until we could grab him. Frank raised his head, blood matting his silver hair. Don't give him anything. Admirable. Robert's voice held no admiration. But ultimately pointless. Here's what happens now, Victoria. You call Marcus Reed. Tell him to release the real files and bring them here. When I verify authenticity, I let Sloan and Frank go. You and Marcus will unfortunately die in a tragic confrontation, 2 desperate fugitives who attacked federal officers. Very sad. Very final. And if I refuse, then I start with Frank, bullet to the head, very messy in front of your daughter. Then I move to Sloan. Same result. You watch everyone you care about die, then you die last. Your choice, but choose quickly. Tori's mind raced. Marcus was listening through the earpiece. Sterling's team surrounded the building. But the moment they moved, Robert would execute hostages. She needed time, needed to keep him talking while Marcus positioned for rescue. I want to understand first. 20 years building Meridian, why you have money, power, respect. Why criminal enterprise? Robert smiled, genuinely amused. Because legitimate money is slow. Boring. Returns of 8 to 12% annually if you're lucky. Criminal money multiplies faster. Cartels need to move billions. Arms dealers have cash piles they can't deposit. Trafficking networks generate rivers of untraceable currency. They'll pay 30% fees for clean money, 40% if they're desperate. Meridian washes $5 billion annually. My cut is 20%. $1 billion a year, tax-free, completely clean. In 20 years, I've accumulated more wealth than 10 lifetimes could spend, all while maintaining a reputation as a respected financial advisor and philanthropist. He spread his hands, showcasing his empire. I built something beautiful, Victoria, a machine that turns crime into commerce. And people like you, honest, hardworking, blindly trusting, are the machine's essential components. You think you're building software companies. Really, you're washing blood money and never knowing it. Until someone like Elena figures it out, until someone gets too curious, yes. Then we remove them and find a new component. The machine keeps running. It always keeps running. Tori saw it now. The true horror wasn't the money laundering or even the murders. It was the systematic exploitation of good people trying to build legitimate businesses. Robert had weaponized trust, turning integrity into a vulnerability. You voted against me in the board meeting. That was your tell. I had to show plausible deniability. Concerned advisor warning against pursuing dangerous enemies. When you died, I'd mourn appropriately while steering the company back toward compliance with my operation. Everything planned, everything controlled. Except I didn't die. And now you're here confessing everything, proving you're the architect. Robert laughed. Proving to whom you're about to be dead. Frank is discredited. Sloane is a traumatized teenager who'll testify to whatever we tell her to say after appropriate therapy. There's no proof, Victoria. No witnesses who'll live. Just another tragedy in a city full of them. Actually, Marcus's voice cut through the warehouse like a blade. There's plenty of proof. He stepped from behind a shipping container, gun raised. Behind him, Frank Callahan. A second Frank Callahan, identical to the first, emerged with a video camera. Behind them, Sterling and 12 FBI agents in tactical gear materialized from shadows. Robert's confidence shattered. He spun looking for his men, but they were already on the ground, hands zip-tied, guns kicked away. Sterling's team had neutralized them silently while Robert talked. Marcus kept advancing his weapon, never wavering from Robert's chest. For the past hour, you've been confessing on camera. 6 agents heard every word through my earpiece. Frank recorded everything on broadcast quality equipment. And the best part, this Frank is the real one. The guy at your feet is Thomas Wheeler, your COO. We grabbed him yesterday, made him up as Frank used him as bait. Robert's face cycled through shock, rage, and finally calculation. It won't matter. I have judges, senators, people at Justice Department who'll bury this. Not anymore. Sterling held up her phone, showing a live feed. We've been streaming to FBI Director Patterson personally. He's watching from Washington, along with the Attorney General, 3 congressional oversight chairs in the New York Times. You're not buried this, you're the headline. For 3 seconds, Robert stood frozen. Then he lunged for Sloane. His hand closed on her shoulder gun, appearing from inside his jacket. He pressed the barrel against her temple. Sloane's scream was muffled by tape, but her terror was visceral. Nobody moves or the girl dies. I walk out of here or she dies. You think I'm bluffing? I've killed 6 investigators. 1 more teenager doesn't matter. Marcus's gun tracked Robert's head, but the angle was wrong. Any shot risked hitting Sloane. Sterling's team held position, waiting for clear opportunity that might never come. Tori saw everything with crystalline clarity. The distance to her daughter, the gun against Sloane's head, Robert's finger on the trigger. She thought of 15 years building walls. 15 years choosing control over connection. 15 years being strong alone because asking for help meant admitting weakness. She thought of Marcus, who'd spent 5 years hunting his wife's killer. Of Ivy, who'd grown up without a mother. Of Sloane, who'd spent her childhood with a mother too afraid of failure to truly be present. People who build fortresses to protect themselves don't realize the fortress also keeps out love. Eventually, you're just alone behind the walls, calling it strength, when really it's just fear. Tori stepped forward, drawing Robert's attention. Take me instead. Let her go and I'll go with you. I'm worth more as hostage. CEO, public figure, media coverage. She's nobody. Mom, no. Sloane's voice broke through the tape. Robert considered this calculating. The gun shifted slightly, no longer pressed as firmly against Sloane's temple. It was the opening Marcus needed. He moved with speed that shouldn't have been possible for a man his size. Closed the distance in 3 strides. His shoulder hit Robert like a linebacker, driving him away from Sloane. The gun discharged, deafening in the enclosed space, but the bullet went wide, sparking off concrete. They crashed to the ground. Robert fought with desperate strength, but Marcus had 5 years of rage fueling every blow. His fist connected with Robert's jaw once, twice, 3 times. This is for Elena. Another punch. This is for every person you destroyed. Another. This is for making me raise my daughter alone. FBI agents pulled Marcus off before he committed murder. Robert's face was a mask of blood, his perfect silver hair matted and disheveled. Sterling cuffed him personally, reading rights in a voice that held grim satisfaction. Robert Kendrick, you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy, money laundering, racketeering, attempted kidnapping, and being a general piece of shit. That last one's not official, but I'm putting it in my report anyway. Tori ran to Sloane, cut the zip ties, removed the tape as gently as possible. Her daughter collapsed into her arms, sobbing, and Tori held her like she should have held her every day for the past 16 years. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry for everything. For not being there, for choosing wrong, for failing you. I'm sorry. You saved me, Mom. You were going to trade yourself for me. Of course, you're everything. You've always been everything. I just forgot how to show it. They stayed like that, mother and daughter, broken and healing, while FBI agents processed the crime scene. Frank interviewed Robert on camera, getting usable footage for what would become the biggest financial scandal in decades. Sterling coordinated with Washington, ensuring the evidence reached incorruptible hands. Marcus approached slowly, giving them space. When Tori looked him up, his expression held such raw emotion she nearly started crying again. "Thank you. For everything, for risking your life for—" "Don't." His voice was rough. "We're partners. That's what partners do." Sloan looked between them with teenager's instinct for romantic subtext. "Are you Mom's boyfriend?" Marcus glanced at Tori, questioning. She nodded fractionally. "Getting there, if that's okay with you." Sloan considered this with teenage gravity. "He saved us. He's good to you. And he has a daughter my age that could be cool. Yeah, it's okay." The simplicity of children cutting through adult complications. Permission granted, future possible. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of debriefings, legal consultations, and media-feeding frenzy. Robert Kendrick's arrest dominated every news channel. Within 6 hours, federal agents had arrested 15 Meridian employees, 3 DOJ officials, and 2 federal judges. Within 12 hours, Michael Hartford was cooperating, providing names in exchange for reduced sentencing. Within 24 hours, 47 shell companies had been frozen and $4 billion in assets seized. The machine Robert built came apart rapidly once its architect fell. Turns out criminal enterprises rely on secrecy, and exposure to sunlight kills them faster than any prosecution. Tori gave 17 interviews explaining how she'd been framed. Marcus stood beside her for most of them, the forensic accountant who'd proven her innocence and helped expose the conspiracy. Their partnership became part of the story, 2 people fighting impossible odds against institutional corruption. Agent Sterling became a minor celebrity, the FBI agent who defied pressure from above to pursue justice. Frank Callahan wrote the definitive account for the Washington Post, winning his 2nd Pulitzer. Derek Brennan got a promotion for providing the software that cracked Meridian's encryption. Garrett Sullivan entered witness protection with his family, starting over somewhere far from New York. His testimony ensured 23 additional convictions. 2 weeks after Robert's arrest, Tori called an emergency board meeting. 8 directors assembled, expecting celebration. Instead, they got resignation. "I'm stepping down as CEO, effective immediately." Shock rippled through the room. The venture capitalist who championed her protested, "Tori, you've been vindicated. The company stock is up 40%. You're a hero. Why would you?" "Because I built this company and lost my daughter doing it. She's 16. I've missed 16 years being the perfect CEO instead of being her mother. I'm not missing anymore." "You're walking away from everything you built." "No, I'm chairman of the board. I'll guide strategy, protect the vision. But day-to-day operations promote Beth Crawford. She's ready, she's earned it, and she won't make my mistakes." The board voted unanimously to accept her decision, perhaps sensing that arguing was futile. While Tori Ashford had spent 15 years proving she could build empires. Now she was proving she could let them go. Afterward, alone in her corner office for the last time as CEO, Tori packed personal items. Photos of Sloan at various ages, ironic that she'd kept them on her desk while sending the actual child away to boarding school. Awards and plaques celebrating achievements that suddenly felt hollow. Mementos from deals that made her rich but left her lonely. Sloan appeared in the doorway. "Mom, can I help?" "Sure, sweetie." And they packed together, and Sloan asked the question Tori knew was coming. "Are you sure about giving this up?" Tori looked around the office that had been her throne room. "You know what I've learned? Success isn't reaching the summit. Success is knowing when you're standing alone in the cold at the top, wishing someone was there to share it with. Real wealth is people who love you. Everything else is just numbers on screens." "That's pretty deep, Mom." "Yeah, well, I had good teachers recently." That evening, they had dinner, just the 2 of them, at a small Italian place in Brooklyn. Not a business dinner, not a rushed meal between meetings, just mother and daughter talking about school and friends and the terrifying experience of being kidnapped by her mother's financial advisor. "I thought you'd given up on me," Sloan admitted over pasta. "When you told me not to come home, I thought you were choosing work again." "Like always." "I was choosing you, keeping you safe. But I understand why you didn't see it that way. I trained you to expect abandonment. You're making up for it now. I'm trying. Will you give me that chance? Let me learn how to be your mom, not just the lady who pays your tuition. Sloane reached across the table and took her hand. Yeah, I think I'd like that. 3 weeks after Robert's arrest, Sloane withdrew from Sterling Academy. She enrolled in a private school in Manhattan, living with Tori full-time. They established routine breakfast together, homework at the kitchen table, Friday movie nights. Small rituals that built the foundation of actual relationship. Marcus and Ivy became regular fixtures. At first, it was careful, orchestrated family dinners where everyone was polite and trying too hard. But gradually, as weeks passed, something organic emerged. Ivy taught Sloane how to braid hair in complex patterns. Sloane helped Ivy with her science projects, having the patience to explain concepts that Marcus made too complicated. The girls became sisters in the way chosen family forms, not through blood, but through shared experience and genuine affection. Marcus and Tori dated like teenagers, awkward and careful. He took her to museums and Broadway shows. She took him to restaurants he couldn't pronounce. They held hands in Central Park and talked until 3 a.m. about everything except the case that brought them together. I don't know how to do this, Marcus admitted one night. They sat on his brownstone roof, Brooklyn, spread below Manhattan, glowing across the water. Dating, romance, moving on from Elena, it feels like betrayal. It's not betrayal to keep living. Elena would want you happy. Logically, I know that. Emotionally, I'm terrified. What if I lose you too? What if caring about someone is just asking for more pain? Tori took his face in her hands, making him look at her. Life doesn't promise us safety. It promises us moments. This moment right now, looking at stars over Brooklyn, choosing to risk our hearts again, this is what it means to be alive. You can build a fortress around yourself and call it protection, but really it's just a prison where you serve a life sentence alone. His kiss tasted like hope, like second chances, like two people who'd forgotten how to trust, learning to try again. By December, they'd fallen into a comfortable pattern. Tori had purchased a brownstone 2 blocks from Marcus, close enough for the girls to walk between houses, far enough to maintain independence. 4 bedrooms, a backyard space for family. Christmas Eve arrived with snow falling soft and persistent. Marcus's brownstone overflowed with guests, Sarah and her family. Frank Callahan, recovered and working on a book about the Meridian case agent. Sterling, now director of Financial Crimes Division. Derek Brennan and his family. The house smelled of pine cinnamon and something burning that was probably Tori's attempt at cookies. The girls disappeared upstairs, giggling and whispering. Sloane had stayed over the previous night, her first sleepover, with Ivy. Tori had heard them talking until past midnight, the sound of teenage secrets and sisterly bonding. Marcus found her in the kitchen, staring at a tray of blackened cookies. I followed the recipe exactly. Baking isn't like accounting. You can't just follow formulas. He slid the tray into the trash. We'll buy cookies tomorrow. Nobody will know. I wanted to make them, like a real mom. You are a real mom, one who makes terrible cookies, but who showed up to her daughter's school play last week. Who helps with homework? Who's there? That's what matters. Tori leaned against him, letting his solid presence ground her. How did you become so wise about parenting? Practice, mistakes. Ivy taught me more than I taught her. Dinner was chaos in the best way, too many people, too much food, laughter, and conversation overlapping. Frank told stories about investigative journalism that made Derek's daughters lean forward with wide eyes. Sterling explained how she'd built the case against Meridian, weaving legal procedure into compelling narrative. At one point, Sloane looked at Tori and mouthed, "Thank you." For what? For this. For family. For choosing differently than she had for 16 years. After dinner, Ivy stood with rehearsed confidence. I have a present for Tori. She handed over a small wrapped box. Inside was a drawing-colored pencil on heavy paper, surprisingly sophisticated for an 8-year-old. 4 people held hands, Marcus, Ivy, Tori, Sloane. Above them, a 5th figure with wings watched over them. The caption read in careful child's handwriting, "Our family complete." Tori's vision blurred. Ivy, I'll treasure this forever. Mommy is always with us. Daddy says so. I wanted her in the picture too because she's part of our family even though she's in heaven. The simple wisdom of children seeing truth adults complicate. Elena wasn't competition or replacement or past to overcome. She was foundation, the woman who'd made Ivy and loved Marcus and fought for justice. Her presence wasn't threat, it was blessing. Sloane approached Marcus with an envelope. Inside, a letter in teenage girl's handwriting. Marcus read silently, his expression shifting through surprise, emotion, and finally something like peace. When he finished, he pulled Sloane into a hug that lifted her off her feet. "What did it say?" Tori asked later. "That I gave you back to her, that she's grateful, that our family has room for grief and joy simultaneously because real families are big enough for complicated feelings. She's a smart kid. She learned from watching your daughter handle loss with grace. They learn from each other. That's what sisters do." Later, after guests departed and the girls fell asleep upstairs, Marcus and Tori cleaned the kitchen together. He washed, she dried, the domestic rhythm, soothing after chaotic celebration. "I need to tell you something." Marcus set down the dish he'd been scrubbing. "I don't have a ring. I don't have a perfect speech planned, and I'm probably doing this completely wrong." Tori's breath caught. "Marcus, let me finish, please. I spent 5 years in darkness after Elena died, consumed by grief and rage, obsessed with finding her killers. I forgot how to live, how to feel anything except determination for justice. Ivy kept me functional, but I wasn't really present. I was going through motions waiting for the case to close so my life could resume. Then you called, and suddenly I had purpose beyond revenge. I had someone to protect, a mission that mattered. Working with you reminded me what I'd been, a forensic accountant who believed in truth, a man who built things instead of destroying them." His hands found hers across the sink. "You're brilliant, stubborn, terrible at cooking, and you still check your phone too much. You're learning how to show affection after decades building emotional walls. You burned cookies tonight and tried to hide the evidence." Tori laughed through tears. She didn't realize she was crying. "But you're trying. Every day you try to be better for Sloane, for me, for Ivy. You're building family after spending your life building corporations. And I love you for it. I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love how you look at Sloane like she's the sun. I love how patient you are with Ivy's endless questions. I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet. We need time, need to let the girls adjust, need to build proper foundation. But I am asking, will you build a life with me, messy, imperfect, beautiful life?" Tori didn't hesitate. "Yes, to all of it, messy, imperfect, beautiful. I want everything." They kissed, surrounded by dirty dishes in the detritus of family celebration. It wasn't romantic in the traditional sense. No sunset, no violins, no grand gesture. Just two people who'd survived hell, choosing to build heaven together. "I have conditions, though." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Negotiate everything, even love." "First condition, we keep Elena's memory alive. Pictures, stories, everything. She was Ivy's mother, your wife. She matters. Always. Second, we go slow. For the girls. They need stability, not adults rushing into permanent decisions." "Agreed." "Third, you have to actually teach me to cook, not just take over when I fail. That might take years. Good thing we have time. And fourth," Tori's voice softened, "you have to be patient with me. I'm learning how to love, how to be loved. It doesn't come naturally after building armor for so long. But I'm trying." Marcus pulled her close. "I know. That's what makes you worth loving, not perfection, but effort." They went to the roof despite the cold, wrapped in blankets, watching snow fall over Brooklyn. Across the river, Manhattan glowed with ambition and possibility. But Tori didn't feel the pull anymore. She'd climbed that mountain and found the view lonely. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked. "Giving up CEO role, walking away from power." "I regret the 15 years I wasted. But walking away, no. I built that company to prove I belonged in boardrooms. Mission accomplished. Now I'm building something harder, family connection presence. Success isn't reaching the summit alone. It's finding people worth bringing along, then choosing to descend together rather than freeze to death on top." That's pretty philosophical for an ex-CEO. "I learned from a forensic accountant who taught me that numbers tell stories, but people write the stories worth remembering." Inside the house, Ivy woke and padded to Sloane's room. Tori saw through the window two girl sisters now whispering and giggling in the darkness, building their own relationship independent of parental orchestration. 6 months later, summer arrived hot and humid. Marcus and Tori hosted a housewarming party at her brownstone, officially combining households, creating space for blended family. The backyard was full of people: Sarah's family, Frank working on his second book, director Sterling, with her husband Derek, Brennan's daughters chasing Ivy and Sloan through the grass. Tori stood at the grill attempting to cook burgers, while Marcus supervised with barely concealed amusement. "You're burning them again." "I'm creating texture." "That's one word for charcoal." He took the spatula. "Let me help." "You always take over when I fail." "I'm not taking over. I'm collaborating. Big difference." They cooked together, his hands guiding hers, teaching through demonstration rather than lecture. The burgers turned out edible, which Tori considered a personal victory. Later, after guests departed and twilight softened the edges of the world, the four of them remained in the backyard. Sloan and Ivy captured fireflies in jars, squealing when the insects lit up. Marcus and Tori watched from the porch, his arm around her shoulders. "You know," Tori said quietly, "a year ago I thought success meant corner offices and board meetings. I thought I'd proven everything by building a company from nothing. But I was standing alone at the top, frozen and isolated, calling it strength when really it was just fear. And now I know success is my daughter laughing with yours. It's learning to cook without burning everything. It's feeling safe enough to be vulnerable. It's this ordinary summer evening, nothing special happening, just family being together." Marcus kissed her temple. "That's the real wealth, the kind you can't put on a balance sheet. Speaking of which, there's one more thing I want." "What?" "More kids, not immediately, not even soon, but someday. Expand this family we're building, if you're interested." Marcus was quiet for a moment, and Tori wondered if she'd pushed too far too fast. Then he smiled wide and genuine. "Yeah, I'd like that. A house full of chaos and noise and burned cookies." "Sounds perfect." Sloan ran up to them, breathless and happy. "Mom, can we go to the park? Ivy and I want to hunt fireflies by the pond." "It's getting late." "Please, we'll be back by dark." Tori looked at Marcus. He nodded. "Be back in an hour, and take your phones." The girls disappeared down the street, their laughter fading into summer evening sounds. Tori watched them go, feeling something she couldn't quite name. Not fear she'd learned to trust. Not anxiety she'd learned to let go. Just contentment, peace. The sense that she was finally, after 42 years, exactly where she belonged. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "Better than okay. For the first time in my life, I'm not running toward something or away from something. I'm just here, present, and it's enough." "You've learned what I learned after Elena died. Life is short. Love while you can. Don't wait for perfect circumstances because they never come. Choose the people who matter and hold on tight." Sterling appeared from inside the house carrying papers. "Sorry to interrupt the romantic moment, but you'll want to see this. Final conviction totals Robert Kendrick 47 counts, including murder, life without parole. 23 co-conspirators, cumulative sentences of 360 years. $4 billion in assets recovered. Meridian Capital completely dismantled. Elena's case, officially reopened and closed. Ruled homicide. Kendrick charged posthumously with her murder, which means federal benefits restored for Ivy. Justice delayed, but not denied." Marcus nodded, emotion flickering across his face. After 5 years, Elena's death was finally acknowledged as what it was: murder by powerful people who'd been held accountable. It wouldn't bring her back, wouldn't undo years of grief, but it mattered. "Thank you, Kate, for everything. Thank Frank and yourselves. You two broke this case wide open. I just handled the paperwork." Sterling smiled. "Though I'm keeping my eye on both of you, don't make me arrest you again." Once was enough. After Sterling left, Tori and Marcus remained on the porch as stars emerged. The girls returned from firefly hunting, jars glowing softly. They showed off their catches, 12 fireflies between them, before releasing the insects to blink away into darkness. "Can we have hot chocolate?" Ivy asked. "It's 80 degrees outside," Marcus pointed out. "Summer hot chocolate tastes different." "Please, Daddy." "Fine, but you two make it. I don't trust your mothers with anything involving fire." "Hey," Tori protested, but Marcus was right. She'd proven spectacularly incompetent with kitchen appliances. The girls disappeared inside. Through the window, Tori watched them navigate the kitchen with easy familiarity, siblings who'd learned to share space and work together. Ivy's careful precision balanced Sloane's confident improvisation. They were becoming a team, creating their own relationship independent of parental involvement. "We did okay," Marcus said. "We did better than okay. We survived corruption, kidnapping, attempted murder, and burned cookies. We built something real from rubble. Think we can keep it going?" "I think we can try, and trying is enough." They stood together in the summer darkness, watching fireflies dance and daughters make hot chocolate. Somewhere in Manhattan, Ashford Analytics continued operating under Beth Crawford's leadership. Somewhere in Washington, federal prosecutors worked through Meridian cases that would occupy courts for years. Somewhere in Brooklyn, an accountant's modest brownstone held family photos that now included a blended family rebuilding after tragedy. But none of that mattered as much as this moment. Two broken people who'd learned to heal together, choosing love over fear, connection over control, presence over perfection. Years from now, Tori would look back on this summer evening and recognize it as the real beginning. Not the moment she called Marcus for help, not the moment Robert was arrested, but this standing on a porch with the man she loved, watching daughters who'd become sisters, knowing she'd finally learned the difference between success and happiness. In the kitchen, Sloane called out, "Mom, we made enough for everyone. 4 mugs of summer hot chocolate. Coming, sweetie." Marcus took her hand as they walked inside. His grip was warm, steady, real. The man who'd spent 5 years hunting his wife's killer had found peace. The woman who'd spent 15 years building corporate empires had found home. They settled around the kitchen table, 4 people, 4 mugs, 1 family. Ivy told a joke about accountants that made Marcus groan. Sloane shared gossip from school that made Tori realize her daughter had friends, now real connections beyond boarding school acquaintances. The hot chocolate was too sweet and slightly burnt, but they drank it anyway because it tasted like love. Late that night, after daughters were asleep and the house was quiet, Tori sat on her bed reviewing the day. She'd spent 42 years measuring success in metrics, revenue, growth, market share, stock price. Numbers that looked impressive on spreadsheets, but felt hollow in the chest. Now she measured differently. Sloane's laughter, Ivy's drawings, Marcus's steady presence. The weight of chosen family versus the emptiness of corporate achievement. Her phone buzzed with an email from Beth Crawford. The company had closed a major deal, adding $50 million in revenue. A year ago, Tori would have celebrated. Tonight, she forwarded the message to the board and went to bed. The company would be fine without her obsessive involvement. Better, probably. Beth wasn't haunted by the need to prove anything. Marcus appeared in the doorway. "The girls want you to read them a story, something about a tradition they're starting." "Both of them?" "Yeah, they picked a book about sisters who solve mysteries. Very on brand for our family." Tori followed him to Sloane's room. Both girls were in bed, Ivy having brought her sleeping bag for another sleepover. They looked up expectantly, the book held between them. "Will you read to us, Mom?" Sloane's voice held no embarrassment, just simple desire for connection. Tori sat on the bed and began reading. The story was about 2 sisters who discovered their grandmother was a former spy. The girls interrupted constantly with questions and commentary. Marcus leaned against the doorframe, watching with an expression of contentment. Halfway through the 3rd chapter, Ivy fell asleep. Sloane lasted 2 more chapters before her eyes closed. Tori continued reading to sleeping daughters for another page before stopping, unwilling to break the spell of peace. She tucked them both in and followed Marcus to the hallway. "You're a natural at this," he said. "Took me 16 years to figure out. Better late than never." They walked to their bedroom, technically Tori's bedroom, but Marcus stayed most nights now, his brownstone slowly emptying as his life merged with hers. Integration was gradual but steady, 2 households becoming one through accumulated nights and shared mornings. "I was thinking," Marcus said as they prepared for bed, "maybe we take a trip, all 4 of us. Disney World or somewhere equally ridiculous. Make actual vacation memories instead of corporate retreats and boarding school visiting days." Disney World, really? Ivy's never been. Neither has Sloane, I bet. And I want to see you on a roller coaster losing that corporate control. I don't lose control on roller coasters. Then I haven't found the right one yet. They made plans late into the night, trips and traditions and the infrastructure of family life. Small decisions that meant everything: where to go for Thanksgiving, how to split holidays between families, whether to get a dog. This is what I missed, Tori said eventually. The planning of ordinary life with someone you love. I spent 15 years planning mergers and expansions. Never planned a vacation or a holiday or a Saturday afternoon. Well, you're planning them now and burning them occasionally, but that's part of your charm. I don't have charm. I have competence purchased through relentless effort. You have both. Plus terrible cooking skills and a tendency to overthink everything. Complete package. She kissed him, stopping the teasing. His arms came around her solid and secure. They'd been through kidnapping and murder conspiracies, corporate fraud, and FBI investigations. They could handle Disney World. Sleep came easily, which surprised Tori. For years, she'd struggled with insomnia, her mind churning through business problems until dawn. Now she fell asleep within minutes, lulled by Marcus's breathing and the knowledge that her daughters were safe down the hall. Morning arrived with sunlight and the smell of something burning. Tori opened her eyes to find Marcus already up. Smoke drifted from the kitchen, along with giggling and Marcus's patient voice explaining why pancakes needed lower heat. She found all three of them in the kitchen, Marcus supervising, while Sloane and Ivy attempted breakfast. Flour covered every surface. Eggs had somehow ended up on the ceiling. The pancakes were abstract art pieces, vaguely circular, but mostly conceptual. "We're making breakfast," Ivy announced proudly. "I can see that. They taste better than they look," Sloane promised, handing over a plate. The pancakes were simultaneously undercooked and burned, a culinary achievement Tori hadn't thought possible. But they tasted like love and effort and family, so she ate every bite and declared them delicious. "Liar," Marcus whispered in her ear, "but a sweet one." After breakfast, they cleaned together, all four of them, navigating the small kitchen. It was inefficient and chaotic, taking 3 times longer than necessary. But efficiency wasn't the point. Connection was. Presence was. The small rituals that built families brick by ordinary brick. As they finished, Sloane's phone chimed. She checked it and smiled. "Mom, Ivy and I are going to the park with some friends. We'll be back for dinner. Have fun. And take our phones, yes, we know the rules." Sloane rolled her eyes with affectionate exasperation. "We'll be careful. Promise." The girls left in a whirlwind of laughter and summer plans. Suddenly, the house was quiet, just Tori and Marcus and the detritus of attempted breakfast. "So," Marcus started the dishwasher, "we have the day to ourselves. What do you want to do?" Tori looked around the kitchen she'd bought 6 months ago when she'd decided to build a life instead of a career. Looked at the man who'd helped her see the difference between success and happiness. Looked at family photos on the refrigerator, candid shots of girls laughing, of family dinners, of ordinary moments that mattered more than any corporate achievement. Honestly, nothing. Just this. Being here, being present. Not planning or building or achieving. Just living. "You've learned the hardest lesson," Marcus said, pulling her close. "That sometimes the most important thing you can do is nothing. Just exist alongside people you love." They spent the day doing ordinary things. Reading on the porch, taking a walk through Brooklyn, having lunch at a diner where nobody knew her as the former CEO or the woman who'd brought down Meridian Capital. Just Victoria eating burgers with Marcus, living a life she'd spent 42 years too busy to notice. As afternoon faded into evening and daughters returned from adventures, Tori realized something profound. She'd spent 15 years building an empire to prove she belonged in rooms full of powerful men. But real power wasn't corner offices or board seats. Real power was choosing what mattered, letting go of what didn't, and having the courage to rebuild when you realized you'd constructed the wrong life. That night, after another dinner and another bedtime story, and another round of goodnight kisses, Tori stood in the backyard, watching fireflies emerge. Marcus joined her wordless companionship, born of months learning each other's rhythms. "No regrets?" he asked eventually. "About giving up CEO, no. About the years before, yes. But regret doesn't change the past. Only the future." "And what does your future look like?" Tori smiled, thinking of daughters asleep upstairs, of family dinners, and burned cookies, of this man who taught her that vulnerability was strength and asking for help was courage. "My future looks like this: ordinary days with people I love, building traditions instead of corporations, measuring success in laughter instead of revenue, No corner office, no board meetings, no acquisition targets. Just family presence and learning to make pancakes that are merely bad instead of catastrophic. That's it. That's enough. That's everything. I just had to lose everything to realize it. Marcus kissed her as fireflies danced and Brooklyn breathed its summer rhythms. Two people who'd survived the worst finding beauty in the ordinary. Two families becoming one. Two hearts learning to trust again. Life doesn't offer certainty. It offers moments. This moment, this evening, this choice to build something real from the rubble of what was everything that mattered.